Our first speaker for this evening is Fernando Alcántar. Fernando is a former denominational youth leader for the Foursquare Church in Baja California, Mexico, and the United Methodist Church in the U.S., leading hundreds of thousands of youth and adult church ministries across Southern California and Hawaii. He was also a globetrotting missionary for the Azusa Pacific University, the second largest evangelical college in the country, leading thousands of missionaries in unprecedented partnerships with churches, government agencies, nonprofits, schools, and businesses. Fernando just released his new book, To the Cross and Back, An Immigrant's Journey from Faith to Reason. Once a high-profile religious leader, Fernando wants to use this book to come out as a gaytheist, that's pretty cool, to help strengthen a national narrative of understanding, tolerance, and acceptance. He wants to help give a voice to those hiding in the shadows, afraid to publicly question their religious, cultural, and sexual identity for fear of isolation and or retaliation. So without further ado, let me welcome Fernando to the stage.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. On December 2nd, 2015, two individuals walk into the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California. One of them, a U.S. citizen, the other one a permanent resident. And in a room full of their co-workers, they start shooting bullets left and right. At the end of this massacre, 14 people are dead and 22 people are severely injured. I was raised in California, an hour from San Bernardino. Some of my best friends still live in that area, and they tell me about the fear, the isolation, the incredible anguish that they felt knowing that their community had been invaded by hate. On June 12th, 2016, another U.S. citizen in Orlando walks into the Pulse nightclub, and it starts the same thing, based on an ideology that shared with the other massacre, walks into a place, and left and right, bang, 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 wishing hate at those who were different. The people would share that some of them go into the bathroom, they lock themselves up, they close the door for the stall, and they hear the laughter just gets a little bit closer. It wasn't just a laughter of hate, it was a laughter of fun. He was enjoying what he was doing. The gun goes over the stall, and more bullets fly. At the end of this night, 49 people are murdered, and 53 others are injured. And I look at both of these two tragedies, and there's two things that I notice. On this side, I see a very strong ideology, it is true, based on some people say skewed view of a particular religion. But these two situations brought out a term that up to that point was not very popular in American culture: homegrown terrorism. Someone infected by an ideology right here in the United States. And a second thing, a reminder on this side. A pain so deep that days and weeks and months later, you're still haunted by the stories and that sinister laughter. And you can picture the tears coming down the cheeks, burning like acid. 2 days ago, an individual in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, walks out of this convenience store. Someone calls 911 on him because he had a gun. And the video shows how he was taken down. And on video, you can see how the bullets enter his body and how life leaves it. Yesterday, another individual gets pulled over because of busted taillight. And you get to see the video again of how life is leaving the body. And the lady's praying, please She says, don't let this be happening right here. Last night, protesting these two things leads into another atrocity. This individual that goes out and says, I want to kill white people. I want to kill white cops. And shoots again, and 5 soldiers and 7 or 12 others are injured. And just in the last few hours, another attack in Tennessee, leaving more people dead and injured. And 2 things come to mind again. One, there's an ideology on this end that keeps infecting people, giving them the right somehow in their minds to be able to come to a place and own someone's rights, own someone's life, own someone's dignity, because they somehow feel the power and they feel a rage and they feel a conviction. And on this side, the consequences, again, the terrible, incredible pain and anguish that never seems to end. Why do I bring these 2 things? You heard the story a little bit, and it is true. I was leader at a time of hundreds of churches, thousands of people around the world for many, many years preaching a gospel that was going to bring salvation, that was going to bring goodness, that was going to eradicate pain, it was going to eradicate hunger, and it was going to eradicate bias. How did I get to that place, and how did it end up here? Speaking of values, backtrack another date. If you can imagine the city Mexicali, Mexico, it is a large city, I suppose, but it's still a city built in a desert, poor. The community is very dysfunctional. My family certainly was. And I'm born into this culture that calls people who are a little bit different, like the way I am. They call them, hey, el pequeño jotito, translated as the little fag, the little weirdo. And I am born different, isolated from a very young culture. And I'm thinking, I cannot be, because of this culture, I cannot be what those people are calling. I cannot be that little fag. I cannot be that jotito. I cannot be that, because they only describe him as a cartoon character, or someone who's deformed, or someone who has an illness. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to develop a new identity that is not what they call something nasty. And they take me in. The atheists are not around, obviously. The atheists got things to do. They got some other knowledge that they have to discover and some intellectual conversations. So it's the Catholics that take me in. But they tell me that what I am is an abomination. Years go forward, now I'm a teenager. I'm developing a new identity. I think I like the boys, but I think they still have cooties, so I'm not going to talk to them. And then comes June 12th, 1994. And I'm in my house in Mexicali. And I'm in my room listening to music, just playing with the boombox. And I hear this loud bang and a shout that follows. I come around the house with my mom and my sister, and I found the body of my stepfather who had been electrocuted doing some work in the back of the house. And it comes to the point that I'm just there in the front of the house with the body of my stepfather turning purple in front of me because life has left him. And if you can imagine the questions that are going through my mind, what is this life about? How can it disappear? The atheists are not around, of course. They're busy. They have intellectual conversations. They have discoveries to come up with. They have things to do, papers to read, and arguments, and obviously shows that they have to watch. So they don't come in. So the religious community is the one that comes in. And they take me in, and they bring me love and affection, but they also tell me that people like me, again, are an abomination. That AIDS was given by God as a sin for who I might be inside. So I reject what I have inside, and I take this ideology, I take this mantra, I take this dogma, because they are the ones that are giving me love, and I grow up. And when I'm with the Foursquare, I'm there in front of thousands of people, thousands of young people from all over the state of Baja California and tell them the same thing. This is an abomination. It is sinful. Look what happens to you, how dirty you can become if this possesses you. And I move on, and I keep growing because the atheists are not around. Of course, the atheists got things to do. They got papers to read. They got discoveries to discover, right? And shows to watch. I go to the second largest Christian college in the nation. I travel the world preaching this gospel. And I learned in my psychology course at this place that being gay, it is a mental disorder, gender identity disorder, that was done, caused by you when you committed sin or sin that was committed against you. And I mentor dozens of young boys, telling them, you do not want to be corrupted by this sin. I know that I feel it inside, but I have this ideology that was taught to me. So I'm preaching this gospel. Eventually I become the leader of other few hundred churches with the United Methodist Church in California and Hawaii. And the same thing. Until finally, I cannot deal with these questions again. I cannot deal with these feelings. And I crash to the point that I end up at talking to the attendant at a Pasadena emergency room, and I cannot believe that I'm uttering these words. My psychiatrist told me to come and check myself in because I want to kill myself. I hit a wall because the inside of me had been crying out a truth that was against the dogma, but I couldn't reconcile it. But it's okay because the atheists were busy. They got things to do. They got papers to write. They got discoveries to discover and shows to watch. So it was the religious community that gave me this identity. Where I was about to take my life and where I was dealing with the guilt, incredible guilt of how many times I got on stage and preached a dogma and a gospel against what I was, but because that's what I was taught. And I bring you back to the beginning of this. When I see all the tragedies that happen because of ideology, because of racism, because of bigotry, because of homophobia, because of misogyny, because of ignorance, it is always going to be some ideology that is going to produce some hate and some incredible pain. And this I tell you, after traveling the world preaching the gospel, this pain is never going to go away. But if the atheist, agnostic, humanist movement does not get up and take your place in the world, this ideology, this void is still going to be filled by this other dogma that is going to tell people like me that I am an abomination, that I am dirty, that I am filthy, and that it's going to end up just like me. Do you know that at this point, one of the highest percentages of suicide in the nation is gay teenage Christians? I was one of them. And I am a survivor. But so many of us have not made it. But that's okay, right? Because the atheist, the agnostic, they got things to do. They got shit to do. Discoveries to discover. Papers to read. Shows to watch. Let them be the ones that come up with the intellectual stuff. Like Richard Dawkins, right? Let be the ones that come up with the stuff. But not the ones that reach out when we're hurting. When my stepfather passed away, when I was being abused, when I was being rejected. Why are we letting the church be the one that comes in and infects us with the dogma covered with this idea of love? I wrote that book, To the Cross and Back, and hopefully you'll get to read it. But one of the analogies that I make there in that book, towards the end, in a chapter called Revelations, the last one. And I make this comment that when I was talking to one of my former professors at the Christian college, I was coming towards the end of my faith, and I was trying to talk to a professor, see if he could keep me in the faith. It didn't work out. But I'm telling them, like, he's trying to convince me the Jesus story and this and that. And I'm telling him, okay, here's the thing. Here's what I see it. Imagine you're an American, and you tell me that, oh, God, Caesar salad is the best salad in the world. But why? Well, because the crouton is so good and the dressing is so good that there's no way that it can be something more tasty and delicious in the world. Okay. But then over here you got someone from the Middle East, and they tell you, no, let me tell you what's going on. Tabbouleh is actually the best salad in the world. How do I know? Because it has olive oil and other really fresh vegetables. None of that like fattening dressing that you have there. That's nasty. Ours is healthy. Since ours is healthier, that's how I know it is the best salad in the world. But you got this Mexicano boy over here that tells you, let me tell you, que pasa, homie. Over here, we got a real salad. It's called salsa. It got jalapenos and tomatoes and this other some stuff that it creates this cultural impact because it's connected with the culture. That's how I know that it's the greatest salad in the world. And I'm telling Dr. Boloyan, you don't get it. It is not the particular salad or recipe. The power is in the vegetables. Whatever combination you choose to make, the power is in the vegetables. In the same way, when it comes to humanity, leadership, compassion, service, unity, accountability, support, those are the human values. But somehow we let religion just take them and own them and wrap a little bow around them and call it church and say this is the only way. And push us out from this ideology always into pain. Do we have it in us to reclaim that right to say those values that do not belong to you religious people, that do not belong to Christianity, that do not belong to Islam, that do not belong to Buddhism, that do not belong to anyone else, that belong to humanity. And I am one of them. I am a proud representative of the human race. And wherever I go, I will show them because I know that someone is hurting, someone is crying. And I will be the one, so help me. I will stand in that place. Because humanism cannot be just another dirty word of the nerds out there. It has to mean something else. If I say something, if I stand in front of people and say, I'm an atheist, I'm an agnostic, it doesn't mean just I'm a thinking head out here. I also need to say I have a beating heart. Because I survived, guys. And it was not an easy journey. You'll find that in that book. It was not an easy ride. And I'm a survivor. But a lot of people are not doing it. As humanists, we need to wake up and act. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Would you like to take some questions? Okay. Fernando has time for some questions.
I'll have some time for some questions. Someone has any? Like I said, two of the largest percentages of suicide, one of them is gay teenage Christians. Another one that inspired me, the other one, second to that one, is teenage Latinas, this cultural environment. And to me, I was a youth leader for about 10 years of my life, 15 that I was in Christianity. And I just felt, you know what, there's just too much blood spilled. If I don't speak, as painful as that was, if I don't speak, if I don't act, then I am a reason for that blood being spilled. You know, if you have the opportunity to act and do something about it and prevent someone from being shot, then it's manslaughter. You're part of it. So I said, you know what, I need to write this. I need to tell the story, even if the people from back in my life are going to criticize me or send me some death threats or whatever that is. I need to speak up. Because right now, it is a matter of life and death. So that's why I'm hoping that people read this book, that that I go around the country speaking. By the way, I would love to come to your campuses as well and preach like this message. I spent 15 years of my life as a missionary in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, all over the place. Just like Dan Barker calls himself still a pastor, I'm also still a missionary. But I want to be here and I want to recruit you to be a missionary of reason. I think that's a life-saving issue. Thank you.
What was it that was driving you to preach this dogma that was causing you to?
Because I knew that I was very broken. You'll see in the book as well, I was sexually abused when I was a child. I saw my stepfather being dead right in front of me. I went through, I was part of a couple of gangs. I saw a lot of, I saw a lot of tragedy when I grew up. So the way Christianity came to me, they said, we're gonna save you. We're gonna give you some love. God, the Father. And as you see in the book, my father abandoned me when I was a fetus. And then my stepfather was an alcoholic, abusive alcoholic that used to throw me against the ground. And not a pretty picture. So my search for religion was searching for that Father, for someone that would love me, someone who would embrace me and would tell me, you're safe. As simple as that. why can't we do that as well, you know? Hands up here.
Do you have any practical examples or strategies for how to find these people that could benefit from our compassion and get to them before the other people do?
There's a couple of things that I think of. One of those, and I think that's the reason why I'm here, when it comes to identity, and I remember when I was talking to the leaders, Nick and Pete, and at the beginning when we talked about this topic, I was asking the question, how would you describe SSA? I've never been to an event. How do you describe the culture? And one of the first things that they said was nerdy and geeky. And I'm sure it's awesome. I'm myself a recovering nerd. You'll see that in the book as well. But it creates an image. It creates a cartoon that is being sold. So that's one image that exists within the atheist world. You're the nerds of the humanity. But that does not equal something else. Another cartoon here that you have is that, and I appreciate and love them, Richard Dawkins and things like that. That angry atheist cartoon, kind of sells, and the religious group uses it for that. So I think it's something else. We need to be good at PR. We're very safe out here in a little world, in a little bubble at Ohio State, but we need to be very active at changing that image when it comes to the world. That we have more than just the geekiness or the anger. The other one is in particular that service. I would love to see the church, remember that churches means a group of people together. But anyway, the humanist group to be as organized as they are when it comes to going out and reaching out and doing service. I would love to be able to see a group of secular humanist people that go out into the world on missions and do the same things that I did as a Christian missionary, but doing it as a missionary of reason. I think that would be incredibly impactful and great. Have a great testimony.
I kind of want to practice my Spanish, so can I ask this question in Spanish?
Por favor.
¿Es realmente un problema con personas de Dios o las instituciones?
Well, he was asking if it's a problem. If it's a problem between the people or the institution, the people of God or the institution. Or someone else?
I mean both.
Both. The one produces the other. Remember, the people of God, raise your hand if you grew up in religion before this. All right? If you did not grow up in religion?
Lucky you.
Bastards. The rest of us know that it's a self-indoctrination, right? They give you the little journal, the little Bible, the little thing you take with you. You get to listen to a podcast. And this self-brainwashing. I sit on the plane, I see someone reading the devotional next to me. They're like, oh my gosh, they're just brainwashing. How was that person? It's scary. So that's the way it is. I'm a psychology major. If you go through these processes, they start teaching you to believe like this. And at the end, it's almost like you lose control. Again, I was preaching havoc against people like me over and over. So I was part of that system. So can I be blamed for it? I think part of it is manslaughter, to be honest. But the other one is I was also a victim. I got one more? Right there.
Hi, thank you for coming. I come from a pretty liberal community where religion is not the mainstream actually, and there's a lot of rhetoric of anger and indignance about all the terrible things that are going on right now in the world across the nation, but there's not a lot of action that's happening at my campus. So I was wondering if you had any advice for how to get something like that started within a secular community that doesn't have the narrative of a God to drive.
Exactly, because I did that a lot with the Christian church. You have to get people, psychologically speaking, people do need purpose. They need a vision. They need a goal line. So the first thing that I would say when it comes to the group, give them a challenge. You're going to go out, honestly, into, let's say, a different country, a different state, something that's out of your comfort zone, because when you're fighting and training for something, it motivates you. And then when you go out there and you actually do something more than, sorry to say, than talk, then it makes you feel that you're making an impact, and you come back and other people are inspired. One of the things, when I was part of the Azusa Pacific University, for some reason, I always had the largest group of applications. And they're so Fernando, are you bribing them or something? No. It's because I preach the mission field as an adventure. I don't just say we're going to go convert the heathens A lot of people did, unfortunately. But I was like, we're going to go on an adventure, and I presented it. If we went to Africa, there was going to be, I presented like if it was a safari. If we went to Latin America, it was kind of a similar thing. So create a specific project, something that's going to be a challenge, that is going to be a service. I would say go to Louisiana, try to go to a different country, and motivate that, do the fundraising, because that breeds leadership. People want to take this role, they're going to do that other thing, and at the end you're going to see that the people, they empower themselves, and that's going to become contagious.
I have a question for you. I love your ideas. I think they're excellent. And I do see the need for more of an emotional connection in the atheist community. I have a question regarding unity. Regarding, atheism, the number one thing that we all have in common in this room is the lack of belief, or at least questioning. And I know we've mentioned his name a couple of times. Richard Dawkins is kind of compared gathering atheists together as herding cats. This is, similar to that. Because it's kind of difficult to get us in alignment at times. What do you propose as kind of, and other than our humanism, what do you propose as a great method for kind of, fostering that cohesion that would serve as a foundation for launching these excellent ideas that you have that are so needed?
Yeah, one example. I saw, anyone here was at the recent rally? Had a good time there, right? And it was a good time. That's an example, I guess. Every time I see something atheist or something agnostic or whatnot, it's something like that, just a lot of, and again, it was great, but a lot of people talking, right? One after the other. And not that I have to say kind of something like that. Too much. Anyway, I love you. Don't kick me out. Hey, I'm done talking, so whatever. No.
We love you too.
This is the last time we come. Anyway, one of the things that I saw within the church, that they're very smart, this pisses me off. They don't only take the values, but they take the leadership concepts. For example, debating, apologetics. They take trainings, debates. They do a lot of retreats. If you go to a Christian retreat, they nurture into the soul. They're gonna have involvement of the arts. Do we have a band out here? Do we have musicians? Do we have acting? They involve the other element. They involve the tactile. They take you out into the woods. You play with the things. So they involve all the senses. Sometimes I see that, again, the Dawkins and whatnot, there's a lot of sermons, basically, one after the other, and you get to 10th one and you forget what the 4th or 5th one was. But I would say when it comes to the humanist community, we have to develop that identity and be more interactive. We need to include the arts, not just the sciences. We need to include all the senses. We need to move, we need to jump, we need to act, not just sit down and listen. And that's that you remember it more, and you encompass a lot of people. You've heard a lot, and there's so much in psychology: left brain, right brain, different kinds of personality, blue gold. I love all this stuff. But you involve a lot more people. I would bet, honestly, if we take a little psychological test, that a lot of us in the room are going to have similar, inclinations, because we like the same thing, sit down and listen kind of thing. But we're missing maybe 3/4 of the population that may not have the same learning habits. So we need to incorporate that and be very intentional. Do you know? Okay, 2 minutes. All right. Last one here.
Again, I'm going to ask this in Spanish.
Of course. Claro.
Para Dios, ¿qué podemos hacer ayudar en estas problemas?
¿Cuáles problemas?
Con personas who deal with discrimination, and like yourself.
People that need saving? Yeah.
What can we do?
I think it's kind of what I've been mentioning. If you can think of little Fernando, 4-year-old Fernando, when he was sexually abused from 4 to 10. If you can think of teenage Fernando when he saw his stepfather pass away in front of him, he was 17 at the time. There was no atheist presence because you were hiding, you were learning of something new. So I think that is the answer. When you see the pain, you need to become active. And you need to become systems like this one, or like the one that I was talking out there. You need to become another force. You need to become noticeable for doing acts outside of the reading and learning. I think if I would have seen that, because at the end, I didn't know what religion was. I just knew these were the people that were helping me. These were the people that were loving me. They infected me with homophobia, but they're at least giving me some love, And to be honest, I don't know if I would have still been alive because I was very depressed at the time for the things that were going on. So they might have kept me alive, but at the same time, they fed me the poison with the medication. For this. Guys, it's been a pleasure. I'll be here for another couple of days. Thank you so much.